I think in the introduction, Todd used the words a modern sage. So if you would kindly send those to my family back at home, that would be very helpful. I'd like for them to understand, really, my place in the world. I'm not sure they quite get it sometimes. A number of years ago, I started to feel dissatisfied with what felt like a dysfunctional relationship between my fellow Christians and my culture, American culture. And one of the ways you know you're in a dysfunctional relationship, this might be helpful for any of you who may need some advice, relationship advice, this will come in handy as well, is you start realizing both parties are seeing each other at their worst. It's one of the ways you know something has gone wrong. It's just when constantly I'm seeing this other person at their worst and they're seeing me at my worst. And I started to feel like that was what was happening with the Christian community that I loved and was part of, and the culture that I loved and was part of. That the culture often was seeing Christians at our worst, at our most vindictive, at our most fearful, our most judgmental. And that when I was in Christian settings, often when people talked about the culture that we lived in, that we all shared, that what I heard was the culture at its worst, the culture at its most worldly, its most damaging and dangerous. And it felt like neither side was seeing one another at their best. And I started to ask, why in the world has this happened? Why is this, like a kid who just grows up in a dysfunctional family and you don't know where all that came from or why things are the way they are, but you're in it, you belong to it, and that's how I felt. I felt like I, without wanting to, was part of this story where something had gone wrong. And so I started trying to understand the last, and particularly the last 100 years of how my fellow Christians had related to the culture around us. And I came to believe that we embraced a series of postures in the last 100 years that really did not help us very much. One of the things that we became known for was condemning culture, protests, judgment, complaint, criticism. And sometimes Christians became known, especially to our neighbors who didn't share our faith, mostly by what we were against. And there were whole movements that defined themselves by the things they didn't do. And if you didn't do this long list of things, then maybe you were sufficiently holy and sufficiently detached from the world. You could call those folks fundamentalists. I don't think it's totally fair to the fundamentalists, but some of the fundamentalists were kind of known by what they didn't do. And their children found this very constricting. The fundamentalists would say, don't go to the movies. And their children said, well, are there no good movies? And so some of their children said, no, we need to go to some of the movies, and what we need to do is not so much condemn culture as analyze it or critique it. We need to become students of culture. We need to examine the worldview of the culture around us. And whole shelves of books have been written analyzing and engaging culture. Some of them great books, some of them very insightful. But I started to feel dissatisfied with this posture too. I felt like, well, is all we're going to do all day, all of our lives, just analyze what's going on? That's sort of what education sometimes feels like, right? It's just lots of analysis. And sometimes I think the academic fallacy is once you've analyzed something, you've changed it. But actually, that's just the first step in any kind of constructive engagement. And what if we just got stuck in a kind of Christian library where all we did was talk about worldview, but we never added anything or contributed anything? And then I noticed that some of my fellow Christians were really good at imitating culture or copying culture. And we even got pretty good with Photoshop. So, we'd take something interesting happening in the culture around us, the Staples Easy button, which, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a red plastic button that does absolutely nothing, but you can push it when you're mad. And initially, it was just an advertising campaign. But people started calling Staples and saying, I need one of those easy buttons. And so they eventually gave in and they started manufacturing them. So you now can buy an easy button. And when you think about it, a red plastic button that sits on your desk and does nothing, but you push it when you're mad, that is so much like Jesus. No, that is actually The gospel is nothing like this. Jesus is nothing like a red plastic button that solves your problems, life's problems. One solution, it's just that easy, Jesus. That's not the gospel. And I felt like in our rush to imitate or copy culture, even with good intentions, we ended up borrowing all the wrong assumptions of culture. That life should be easy. There should be a button. Darn it, God, why aren't you answering my button? When in fact, the gospel is a much deeper, more difficult, and beautiful thing than any button, right? And then I realized, okay, so we've got people condemning culture, we've got people critiquing it, we've got people copying it, and then we have a lot of people who just simply consume it. We just kind of lay back and lie on the couch with our remote control, and we're like, oh, I wonder what's on. And whatever, the fundamentalists said, don't go to the movies, and their children, the neo-evangelical said, oh, go to the movies and investigate their worldview. And the grandchildren of the fundamentalists just go to the movies. Like, we don't ask any big questions. Harold and Kumar do Dallas or whatever. Great, that's what's on. We don't think about it. We don't interact with it. We just let it wash over us and shape us. And what struck me about all of these postures was not just the fact that they all begin with C, condemning, critiquing, copying, consuming, which actually they didn't initially when I was thinking about this, but then a Southern Baptist friend of mine got a hold of this material and started teaching it in his church. And when I got his notes back, everything began with the same letter. And I was like, this is awesome. It's like the Southern Baptist spiritual gift of alliteration. It's this great gift to the body of Christ, actually, so I use it. I can remember those points. You might be able to remember them. It all starts with C, right? In addition to all beginning with C, the problem is all of these were reactive. They all were reacting to culture. They were waiting for the culture out there to do something and then respond with criticism, with analysis, with imitation, with consumption. But none of them were about adding something. And I wish this were just 20th century history, but last year in a number of magazines, this ad ran for a book by a well-known pastor who I respect and appreciate, and I have nothing bad to say about the book. But the ad is amazing. These hands are folded in prayer, but they're sheathed in heavy-duty rubber gloves. And the prayer is, deliver us from culture. And there's a lot to say about this ad. You could probably do a whole class on analyzing the messages in this very powerful, memorable ad. But two things struck me about it. One was, we've taken the Lord's Prayer in this little advertising slogan and taken the phrase, deliver us from evil, and just replaced it as if you could just, one or the other, culture, evil, culture, just get us out of here, Jesus. As if culture and evil were the same thing. And then I had another thought, which is, okay, suppose God answered this prayer. Said, I have heard you, O rubber glove protected one. Where would God deliver us to? Where would we be if God answered this prayer? Because culture is, not just the bad stuff, it's buildings, it's lights, it's clothing. Your clothes that you wear are culture. If you've ever been to a nude beach, I spent a summer in Greece and got to spend some time on nude beaches. I discovered what a great gift clothing is to 98% of the human race. I mean, it is a beautiful thing that we adorn ourselves this way. And it is a terrifying thing when it's all British tourists slowly turning into lobsters in the all-together on a Greek beach. You just want to say, please, for the love of God, embrace some culture, right? If God delivered us from culture, human beings don't flourish without culture. We're nothing without all these things that give us structure and meaning and possibility and an ability to act in the world. So how could God answer this prayer? And I wondered, why is our picture this protection image when it's not something more like this, a kid who's just been having so much fun digging in the world? Yes, the world has dirt in it. Yes, there's probably bacteria on his hands right now. But he can wash his hands. He can come into worship and be cleansed and renewed and reoriented. He has an immune system that protects him from the worst that the world could do to him. And he can go out and dig in the dirt and play in the world and make something. When he's a kid, he just makes mud pies and sandcastles. But when he grows up, he could actually make something in the world. And why would that joyful 8-year-old want to turn into a a self-protective, fearful 48-year-old praying, take me out now, get me out of here, rather than what can I do, what can I contribute? I started to believe that somehow we had been missing some chapters in our Bible. Not literally, these chapters are in every bound Bible, but everybody has sort of a Bible they really know and then parts of the Bible they never read. And I started to feel like we were missing 4 especially important chapters. The first 2 and the last 2. So the first 2 chapters, Genesis 1 and 2, the story of the good beginning of the world. And the last 2, Revelation 21 and 22, the story of the remaking of the world and the God re-giving the world to his redeemed people. And if your Bible does not, if your functional Bible, the Bible you actually let shape your imagination, doesn't include those bookend chapters of the Bible, the first 2 and the last 2, what are you left with? You're left with a Bible that starts in Genesis 3 and ends in Revelation 20. Now, so what's Genesis 3? This is your Biola students. What's in Genesis 3? The fall. The word fall isn't in there, but that's what we call it. I like to call it the Declaration of Independence, actually. Watch out. Humanity declares their independence from God. They do fall from their original dignified status as image bearers and become embroiled in sin. So this is sin, the arrival of sin in the world. Revelation 20, I don't know if you know this one, but if you go to certain kinds of churches, you might have heard it. What's the last thing we see in Revelation 20? It's the lake of fire. Yeah, bring it. Yeah, I want to see that. Fast forward through the movie, skip all the dialogue and all the romantic parts and just watch the judgment sequence, right? Where Satan and all his works are swept into this lake of fire. What happens if you have a Bible that starts with sin and ends with judgment? Well, it's a bad news to bad news Bible. It's a Bible that begins with bad news and ends with bad news, which of course leads to the question, well, what is the good? I thought Christians were about good news. What's the good news here? And the way the story sometimes is told from people who have this Genesis 3 to Revelation 20 Bible is, well, the good news is that's not your story. You're going to be lifted out of that story entirely, and you'll watch the world go to hell, and you'll cheer from a heavenly sort of, bench seats, and you'll watch as that story comes to its conclusion, but you will be taken out of it while others are left behind, let the reader understand, to suffer the fate of the world, the judgment of the world. So the good news is it's not your story. But what if there's a better story in the Bibles that we have that starts with a good world, Genesis 1, Genesis 2, and ends with a glorious remade world, Revelation 21 and 22? How would that change the way we see culture? Now, some of this is going to be very obvious to you because you have read these chapters, but let's just recall what they say, what they, the orientation they give us to the real story of the world. Not a bad news to bad news story, but a good news to good news story. So Genesis 1 and 2, just a couple themes. Of course, these are very familiar, but it's so good just to marinate in them. That 6 times in Genesis 1, as God is making the world, God saw that it was good. Good, 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 good. The world that culture happens in, the world that we human beings find ourselves in, is not a world fundamentally characterized by conflict and violence, as real as those things are, but deeper down and further back is a world that God looked at and said, that's good, made by a very good God. Into this world, God introduces these particular creatures made in his image, unlike all the other creatures. And that's what we're surrounded by in a room like this right now. We're surrounded by image bearers, male and female, he created them. In the image of God, he created them. And he says to them, now, I want you to be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Go out into this good, wild world and start culturing. And do it everywhere. I don't want just a few of you. I want teeming image bearing all over the world, which means, by the way, I want cultural diversity. Because as these image bearers multiplied and spread out through the incredibly diverse natural world, they would naturally develop all kinds of different cultures that made different things of the world in different climates and different geographies and different latitudes. And so the cultural diversity that we get little glimpses of in rooms like this is actually part of God's original good intention for the world. And what are they to do? Till it and keep it. The world is good. Take care of it. Cultivate it. And then once the image bearers are in the world, God says, now it's not just good, it's very good. So the story of Genesis is from good to very good. A good natural world, but once culture is in the world, it's very good. A couple of illustrations of this. So the world has grain in it. Grain is good, right? Grain is part of just the natural order of plants. But human beings take the grain, they harvest it, they crush it, they mill it, they combine it with a little bit of yeast and salt and water and a little bit of thyme. Then they put it in an oven, and out comes bread, right? And so you could say grain is good, but bread is very good. The world has grapes in it. Image bearers come along, they harvest the grapes, they maybe trample them underfoot or crush them in some way, put them in a vat, give it some time, and an amazing thing happens if you're Baptist. It turns into grape juice. It's extraordinary, actually, how that works. But I'm Episcopalian, and for us, it turns into wine, actually. Did I just get in a lot of trouble or a little trouble? And I would say the grape is good, but wine is very good. Or grape juice is also very good. And the difference is image bearers. You don't ever get bread without image bearers. There are no bread trees, right? It's only through cultivation that it happens that very goodness appears. Wine appears in the world. It's only through human beings taking the good grapes and acting on them, culturing them, that you get the very good wine. Another example, let's make use of this little instrument here. This is just a major chord, a C major chord. And the world is full of sound from the moment that God creates it. But it's not till human beings come along. When human beings come along, somebody gets the idea, if you stretch out a string of a certain kind of gut or metal until it's tight and tense, and then you pluck it or you strike it as a piano would do, you get a sound, you get a note. And that's not just sound, that's music. That's a musical, harmonious note. And in that one single note are all these overtones. That's physics. I don't have time to go into it, but trust me, in that single resonating string is not just this one note we kind of hear, but also the octave above it, the fifth above that, and eventually another note up there, which we would call the third above the fifth. And all these frequencies are in a single struck or plucked string. And they make up what we call a major chord. So you can take that major chord and you can arpeggiate it. You can just play it out over time. And this is what Bach does. And then you can take a slightly more complicated chord. We'll call it the 4 chord. And then you can go to the 5 chord. And that, just by the properties of physics and harmony, kind of leads you back. Where does it lead you back? Back to this first chord, right? And if you know these 4 chords, 1, 4, 5, 1, you can now be a worship leader. That was so not fair. Actually, you need one more chord. It's the relative minor. It's this chord, A minor in the key of C. And now you can be a worship leader, right? 1, 4, 5, 1, 6 minor. You are done. You are like set. Off to Nashville with you. And what Bach does is he takes this most basic sequence and he just plays through it very simply. So he's done 1, 4, 5, 1. Now he goes to the minor chord. But Bach says, there's actually more in this world than just those chords. So he starts to explore all these other possibilities, all within this one major scale. And as he goes, what he's doing is he's creating little moments of tension like this and resolution. Tension, resolution. Tension as those different overtones kind of fight with each other, resolution. And as Bach continues this one simple piece, what he's basically doing is taking you farther and farther away from that one home chord, which we're going to revisit here for a moment. There it is again. But he's making it more and more complex. And so as he goes deeper into the piece, what's coming up here is actually the most dissonant moment in the piece. At the very middle of the piece, here it is. Now that is extreme. All those harmonies and overtones are fighting with each other there. But in the middle of the piece, even that dissonance is quite beautiful. And now what Bach is going to do is he's just going to play with you in a way. He's going to say, there are so many things I can do just sitting on this one note in the bass. I can take you through a whole other sequence that takes you even further from home. And what I'm doing is just setting up the possibility that there's a way to get back to that home chord. And now it's going to seem like we're there, but he's going to throw in one little twist. That's the twist. And then finally he gives you the 4 and the 5. And now we're home. Sound is good. But music is very good. Bach is very good. And that's just the simplest little piece of Bach. And whenever you see image bearers doing what they're made to do, this is what they're doing. They're taking the raw materials, the good raw materials of the world God made, and they're saying, how can I cultivate this? How can I create with this? What possibilities are lying in there waiting to be explored? Now, we mentioned my family at home, so here's a picture of my wife. My wife is a musician, but she's also a physicist. My wife teaches college students physics, and she works in a lab with all this complicated equipment behind her. I have no idea what she does or what that equipment does. Please don't ask. She also does math, right? So I have no idea what these equations are. I'm told they're important and that they make the world work and so forth. And this is what my wife does. And in her own way, she's doing what Bach was doing and what artists do and what engineers do and what doctors do. She's taking a part of the world and digging deeply into it until she finds what's good in it. And then using her image-bearing capacity, she's adding to the very goodness of the world. That's the story of Genesis, good to very good, natural world to cultured world. Now, very quickly, what happens when you go over to Revelation 21? I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy garden, the restored Garden of Eden, coming down out of heaven from God, with none of that icky human culture to be found in it anywhere. This is actually a reading from 2 Opinions 3:15, which is the most cited book in the Bible. God helps those who help themselves, 2 Opinions 1:5. No, this is not what Revelation 21 says. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It does not say I saw a new garden. It says I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Yes, the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Yes, and the sea was no more. But I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. Not a garden, but a city. And what is a city? It's a place where the diversity and depth of culture has reached critical mass, where everywhere you look, you see culture in all of its possibility and all of its variety. And in this world, in this city, the foundations of the wall of this city are adorned with every jewel. John lists them all. Some of them I've never heard of. And it doesn't say every mineral. It doesn't say on every gate there was a mineral. Minerals are nature, natural. But jewels are culture. It says the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. People will bring into that city the glory and the honor of the nations. The work of culture making will not be lost, will not simply be swept into the lake of fire. Anything that was the fulfillment of God's intention for his creation that brings glory to God will be in that city. This was on my Starbucks cup a couple years ago when they were putting quotes on the sides of the cups. It's from Joel Stein. He's a columnist for the LA Times. And here's what he said. Heaven is totally overrated. It seems boring. Clouds, listening to people play the harp. It should be somewhere you can't wait to go, like a luxury hotel. Maybe blue skies and soft music were enough to keep people in line in the 17th century, but heaven has to step it up a bit. They're basically getting by because they only have to be better than hell. I read this and I had three thoughts. Number one was, Joel, that is not what we Christians believe. We do not believe we're going to float up to some otherworldly, cloud, harp-filled place. Nothing against harps, but, there are other instruments, saxophones, gamelons, electric guitars. We believe heaven is coming to earth. We believe that the best meal you've ever had, the funniest joke you've ever told, the best story you've ever read are just tastes of the kind of abundance of the world that's waiting for us. Then my second thought was, who in the world told Joel Stein this is what we Christians believe? And then I had this third awful thought. Oh, we told him. He thinks this is what we think it's going to be. Deliver us from culture. No. Go out into this world to take the good world God has made that others have already cultivated and made very good, and you do your part to shape it, to till it, to keep it, to cultivate it, to create in it, and to create something that might be called the glory and the honor of the nations. And that will give God glory in his image bearers. So that's what we go out to do today. Have a wonderful day. You're dismissed. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thank you.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.